Cinema Sounds and Secrets Tributes, Remembering the Greats.
Well, this is one of the iconic, really truly iconic film critics who ever sat down with pen to paper, typewriter keys to hands, and punched out some of the most kind of game-changing film criticism in the 20th century in movies. And that was the really intense and interesting Pauline Kael.
Yeah, she's unequaled, really.
Unequaled. She died in 2001, and she's just one of those great iconic forces that I felt was worth doing tribute to.
Pauline Kael, yeah, just
Yes.
like you say, changed it in the 60s, 70s. When she was coming to that was it.
Yeah.
It made it more of its own art form. Criticism before it was, it was essays. They were like cinema essays, weren't they?
Right, and there were people who held, the sword of Damocles over the artist, from the time of movies on. But she was influential. She just had a style, and her prose style and everything just made people go, whoa, who's what? And she saved movies. She made movies. She made directors' careers, and she's really left a lasting impression on film criticism. And, Roger Ebert, whom I just loved, Roger Ebert, the great Chicago film critic, said that Kael had a more positive influence on the climate of film in America than any other single person over the last 3 decades.
Wow.
So from the 60s onward, she just was it. And she had no film theory. She didn't really have rules. She didn't have any standards. She didn't have an approach. She would sit down. She either liked it, didn't like it, got it, embraced it, or didn't embrace it. It was incredibly personal, and I think that was what was quite different.
But if a film is unusual or difficult, or if it has any kind of artistic resonance, then they're much more likely to be hostile. And then for some strange reason, it's an insult to the American public, almost as if art were un-American.
Yeah.
But she was born back in 1919. In Petaluma, California. Her parents had a chicken farm.
Of course.
And they were Polish immigrants. And she ended up going to Berkeley, but she dropped out and moved to New York and got into the arts scene. So that would have been right in the Depression, Depression era.
Yeah. And
her boyfriend was a poet named Robert Horan. And she stayed there for a while and came back and really became, it's hard to believe this because she was so tough. And to me, I didn't see her as a bohemian but this was many, many decades later, as a bohemian and artist, know.
Yeah.
And she seemed like part of the industry and the high platform of which no one. Yes, it was very interesting.
She's definitely part of the fabric.
Yeah, but she was a single mom with a very sick daughter. She worked all kinds of jobs, and she was at a coffee shop with an editor of the Bay Area City Lights magazine, which was really, really influential.
That was massive. Yeah, absolutely
and
influential.
Kael was arguing with a friend in the coffee shop about movies, and he hired her to write a review of Charlie Chaplin's Limelight.
You are joking.
Yeah, from the late 40s.
Which we talked about.
I love that movie.
So good. We talked about it.
She titled her review Slimelight, and a critic was born. So
I love it.
She had her own, she was very tough.
Most of the words in movies aren't worth hearing anyway, and you forget them as soon as you've heard them.
She was very emotionally in her reviews. Okay, so there's a review of Vittoria De Sica's 46 film Shoeshine that is considered to be one of her most memorable. And she says, after one of those terrible lovers' quarrels that leave one in a state of incomprehensible despair, I came out of the theater, tears streaming, and overheard the petulant voice of a college girl complaining to her boyfriend, well, I don't see what was so special about that movie. And she said, I walked up the street crying blindly, no longer certain whether my tears were for the tragedy on screen, the hopelessness I felt for myself, or the alienation I felt from those who could not experience the radiance of shoeshine.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Just very...
But I mean, the thing is, she put the reader in her shoes,
Yes, she
for
did.
sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
with a shoe shine.
With a shoe shine.
She was, but she wrote for McCall's, but she panned so many Hollywood movies. She didn't like Dr. Zhivago.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't like The Sound of Music, that they fired her.
Wow.
And in those days, there was tons of film criticism from the magazines. It was a huge art form in business,
Yeah,
and it's so different now. The New Republic wouldn't print her review of Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, I'm Miss Bonnie Parker, and this here's Mr. Clyde Barrow. We rob banks.
Which she, had mixed feelings about, and then wrote that amazing piece. So she went to Wallace Shawn, who at the New Yorker, and they ran it, and that made her the superstar. And it was this big, long essay about Bonnie and Clyde. And I'm sorry, not Wallace Shawn, it's William Shawn.
Okay, I was about to say
Wallace's
Wallace Shawn.
dad.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's Wallace Shawn's father, which is what I meant to say. William Shawn, who was the king of New York publishing.
Right.
He was brilliant. So he saw the piece and he ran it in October. And her review was at odds with the opinion about the film being inconsistent and how creepy that it was comic and violent. But it is a dark comic, darkly comic drama.
Yeah.
And it was so new. It was kind of revolutionary. And that's another great movie.
We love it.
Yeah. So she had this review. It changed the course of the Bonnie and Clyde film because everyone was giving it a second look, and it became a phenomenon.
Yeah.
In film history and in film culture and at the Oscars, and which we've talked about, and everything else. So she was asked to join the New Yorker, and that was it. She kept pissing off all the other critics at the magazine, and they would quit. They're like, oh, I can't stand her, until she was the only critic left in 1980.
Wow.
So she just really was an unequal kind of sensibility.
Yeah.
She didn't want to do, she argued that wasn't sure about Citizen Kane.
If you could have found out what that rosebud meant, I bet that would have explained everything.
No, I don't think so. No. Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it. Maybe Rosebud was something he couldn't get or something he lost. Anyway, it wouldn't have explained anything. I don't think any word can explain a man's life. No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle. A missing piece.
And argued that Mankiewicz was the sole genius of Citizen Kane and not Orson Welles. I mean, there's all kinds of opinions. And she also battled with the New Yorker over Deep Throat, and because she thought they should review it, and Terrence Malick's Badlands.
One day, while taking a look at some vistas in Dad's stereopticon, it hit me that I was just this little girl, born in Texas, whose father was a sign painter, who had only just so many years to live. It sent a chill down my spine, and I thought, where would I be this very moment if Kid had never met me or killed anybody this very moment?
So she just said, because she didn't like it. So she would go after things, and she and Sean butted heads all the time. Clint Eastwood, she had issues with Clint Eastwood, so she would go after him. She didn't like Midnight Cowboy. She panned it, even though it won Best Picture. So she
I can get some of them. Like, yes, look, again, criticism is is a personal. It's very, very subjective. It's not objective.
Yes.
The greatest criticism is it allows you to see what that person is thinking, and you find critics that you agree with.
Yeah.
That and kind of take their recommendations.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I disagree about Midnight Cowboy. I kind of agree about Citizen Kane. It isn't my favorite film of all times. It's a good film.
Yes.
But I can kind of agree. It's not the be all and end all.
It's not on my top 5.
It's not on my top 5.
Yeah. It's
I don't
kind
even
of
know.
in
It's
the
not
top,
even in my top 10. It's
probably in
maybe
the
my
20.
top 20.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Bottom of top 20.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's so many movies I
There's-
love
yeah,
more.
exactly.
I love, and I really admire. I like it. But
Yeah.
I don't love it.
Yeah, so
love it.
that's cool. And at least she had the cojones to kind of stand up to
did.
people and go, look,
Yes.
listen to me.
Well, she became Clint Eastwood's nemesis. She just really did not get along with him.
Movies in general are laid out for an audience. That is, the director gives you a fix on the characters immediately and tells you how to view the whole picture right from the opening.
And there were directors whose careers were really affected by her. One was Paul Schrader with Taxi Driver.
Who's a killer?
That guy Sport's a killer. That's who's a killer.
Sport never killed him.
He killed
He's
someone.
a Libra.
He's a what?
I'm a Libra, too. That's why we get along so well.
He looks like a killer to me.
I think that cancers make the best lovers, but God, my whole family are air signs.
He's also a dope shooter.
So what makes you so high and mighty? Will you tell me that? Hey, look, Sport never treated me bad. I mean, he didn't beat me up or anything like that once.
Who was the screenwriter of Taxi Driver, and he'd gotten into UCLA Film School based on her recommendation, and that made his career as a director. And Schrader was just somebody she just really, really loved, and said, that Scorsese was great, but Schrader's script, I mean, she really just loved Schrader's work. And she, of course, David Lean felt that he kept her from making a movie for 14 years because of her negative cover on Dr. Zhivago.
Right.
And so they did not get along.
I mean, you can see why she may not have liked Dr. Zhivago if she didn't like some of the
more streamlined stories. Yeah. But they knew he did Passage to India later, Ryan's Daughter. But it is interesting how one person can have this kind of impact.
Well, it's like Frank Rich on Broadway, the same thing. There were people that had in the New York Times, if a review came out that wasn't great, a show could close the next night or the following night. So good critics hold immense power for sure.
She did.
Yeah.
She really wielded. Her pen was mightier than the sword.
Yeah,
absolutely. And she continued to write to reviews until 1991, but she developed Parkinson's, and she had to stop. So she had a decade where she was no longer writing. And in '98, she was asked if she thought her criticism had affected the ways movies were made, and she said, "If I say yes, I'm an egotist. If I say no, I've wasted my life."
Yeah.
So she said nothing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of who she was. She was a very dynamic, opinionated. I don't know about being opinionated, but
Well, no, she had an opinion.
She had an opinion.
Opinionated doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
No,
it just means that you have an opinion. You're going to stick by it,
right? And she did. She always stuck by her guns. So, just a little nod to the great Pauline Kael today, and some of these incredible movies from her yays and nays, but it's a bevy of great films and some amazing criticism that's really worth looking up.
Absolutely. There's plenty of places you can find it.
Yes, there are. Yes.
Might even be a recommendation, one of our monthly recommendations.
Might be.
You never know.
I think you have to establish some sort of way of seeing and thinking in order to be a good screenwriter. I don't think this happens from going to film school. because the bare techniques of writing a screenplay are fairly simple, and nobody cares about the form in which you write it anyway. The real thing is that you can write, and that you can write dialogue and create characters, and that you can learn as much about from writing fiction or drama as a lot more than from going to a film school.
In the words of the immortal great Bob Hope, thanks for the memories.
Yes, thanks, Pauline Kael. You'll find out more details and links about the career of today's memorable artist, the opinionated and wordy Pauline Kael, the great film critic. And you can find out more on our website, cinemasoundsandsecrets.com, where we'll have links and all kinds of great stuff for you on today's tribute artist. I'm Janet Doolin-Jones.
I'm John Schwab, and we will see you here next week
at the movies.